Hello everybody, welcome to the Daily Sip. My name is Oliver. My mission is to bring you closer to organic Japanese green tea, and today we're gonna dive into the next session of the Mega Sampler review. So this is the 28 Mega Sampler pack we have, and today we're gonna dive into the Bancha of Mr. Masuda. So this is the tea we're gonna have a look at. Mr. Masuda, situated in Shizuoka, and he's producing several kinds of tea, also sencha, also matcha, but what we have from him in our assortment is his Bancha. And Bancha, as you might know, is the second most consumed tea in Japan, so around 10% of all the harvest and all the tea production is actually made out of Bancha. When we talk about sencha, for example, which is the most famous tea, there we are at around 80%. So you see between sencha and Bancha there's a vast difference, but Bancha still quite often consumed tea in Japan. And when we go into Bancha and these specificities, we first start with the name. So the name Ban and Cha, as you might know, means a tea, and Ban has actually a double-faced meaning. On the one hand, it can mean simple, so it's a simpler tea, or on the other hand, what they say, it's a late tea. So Ban can refer to late. So in both cases, it means that Bancha is not as complex in its being as, for example, the sencha world. When you talk about sencha, when you dive into sencha, what you will realize very, very fast is actually that you are having, or you are seeing, a lot of varieties. It can be lower quality, mid quality, and very high quality, superior quality even. So there, the kind of the array of choice is very, very big. Meanwhile, Bancha is mostly similar from farmer to farmer, but then really the region or the terroir where the tea is planted is actually affecting the taste of the tea. But in general, we can say Bancha is a little bit more a simpler tea, also a smaller array of different flavors, but it is a very, very nice tea. When we look at the aesthetics of the tea, what we will see is that this tea, due to the fact that it is a later harvest and it is not so finely curated as a sencha, we can see that the leaves, for example, they're a little bit more brighter. So here we are not talking about shading or anything, so it's really just thicker grown, more mature leaves. What you can see, I just brought here, for example, the Kabuse sencha, which we have new in our assortment, just to give you a comparison of these two. So this is the sencha. You can see dark leaves, very fine leaves. When it's a longer steep, so Fukamushi style deep steam, then it even gets a little bit more brittle. So very, very fine and also tightly rolled leaves. When we talk about Bancha, you can see that here the difference is clearly visible, that with this tea and with these leaves here, you can have more of a kind of a thicker leaf in your tea, and they're not rolled or only slightly rolled. And Bancha is actually a tea that evolved pre-sencha, because the rolling method, which was invented in the 18th century, there in the Edo period, so before the Edo periods, we started even a little bit before, there Bancha was already a way to drink tea, besides the most kind of ancient tea, which is matcha. For you, maybe you might have known that the tea powder was the original form how the monks drank the tea. Then Bancha evolved, and after the invention of the rolling technique, then sencha could really have its breakthrough, and that's also a reason why sencha is the most spread tea in Japan at the moment, because it was just kind of a winning streak as soon as the rolling and this breaking of the leaves and the stronger flavor and the different flavors that could be produced thanks to this rolling method, then the sencha really picked up as a famous and also a very mainstream tea in Japan. But back to the Bancha. When we look at the teas, we saw now we have thicker leaves, and what we also know is, and that's also maybe important for people who are a little bit more sensitive to caffeine, we know that Bancha has less than half of the caffeine actually of normal sencha. With the sencha we talk around 70 to 80 milligrams. It can even go a little bit higher, and with Bancha we talk around 35 milligrams of caffeine. So here we have a much lower caffeinated tea. If you want to go even lower, there you have the Kukicha, the stem teas, which can be quite of interest for you, but Bancha in general a very, very soft tea. And also what I personally like a lot about this tea is that it is a soft tea in terms of acidity. So here we are talking about an alkalizing tea. Meanwhile with sencha or gyokuro, for example, these are acidic teas. So here it is very smooth to the stomach. It is also known, thanks to the richness of the tannins which are in the leaves of this tea, that you're actually able to digest easier. So it helps with digestion. Often I heard that this tea is also a good tea after a meal, so you can easily drink this after a meal. It is also, for a green tea, is quite high in iron, so this is also an aspect which is quite interesting about this tea. So all in all, we can say it is a tea which is for more mature leaves, a little bit older, lower in caffeine, a little bit richer in tannins, helps with digestion, and it is just a good tea in terms of taste. When you're looking for something which is a little bit more a little bit more wooden, a little bit more earthy, a little bit more settled flavor, I would even say, because with the Bancha we often experience a little bit to the fact that there are more mature leaves. They're not as fine and not as concentrated as the sencha leaves, or even the shaded sencha leaves. So we are talking about more a little bit this wooden flavor. They come a little bit more in the forefront of the flavor when you brew this tea. But let's go into the brewing of this tea. So I just take 5 grams. And then I'm gonna brew it for 1 minute. It's a super easy brew. With this one here, you can even go to 80, even 90 degrees Celsius, so up to nearly 200 Fahrenheit. But I brew it here now at 70 degrees Celsius, which is around 165 Fahrenheit. So I still like to brew the teas not too hot. I like to drink them when they have a good hot temperature, but not too hot. Sometimes 80 degrees Celsius, or even 90 degrees Celsius is a little bit too hot for me. What I often use are these double-walled glasses, because when you have the water which is not that hot, then when you fill it in a ceramic cup, then it can cool down quite quickly. I personally prefer these double-walled glasses, because what is good about them is that they can really keep the temperature of the tea after brewing at a similar level for a longer time. So, good. Then let us go in the brewing of this tea. So I'm gonna pour it here. Good. So I think we are there with the minute. So you also see the brewing is very, very different to a shaded green tea. It's not as green, it's not as intense, it's more golden, nearly yellowish a little bit, the brewing. This is also due to the less intense green color of this tea, of the leaves. So definitely a tea which is strongly in a golden, kind of a golden shade of the liquor. So this is definitely something which is very specific about this tea. If you have some senchas which are unshaded, can also go a little bit in this direction, but mostly I get this color from Bancha. So let's go into the tasting. What I definitely get always with this tea is kind of this young wooden flavor. So it's a little bit slightly earthy, slightly wooden, a little bit leafy flavor. So there's a little bit of a vegetal flavor, but clearly dominated by this kind of wooden, young, fresh, young wood. So when you kind of peel off of a young tree, the fresh kind of branches, when you have the fine small branches, you just peel them off and then you smell them. This is actually the flavor I get a lot with this tea. So a very smooth, very kind of mellow taste, not highly complex. So personally, I'm a big fan of this tea. And it just seems very smooth, very easy, very soothing also. If you want to go and, for example, you wake up in the morning, you want to have a strong tea, you get your strong sencha in the morning, and just in the afternoon or even in the evening, or when you also come back from sports, this tea can be just a super soothing tea, which can then be a quite pleasurable drink for the afternoon, evening, being low in caffeine, so you have, or you should have no problems actually to sleep. Let's just have a look how the second brewing will be. So here also, as with all the other teas, here we can go and just brew it for some seconds, and then and voila. You see the color stays quite similar. So here we are at a very similar color. Also from here, so you can see that this tea doesn't change a lot in color from the first to the second brewing. And also the taste stays very, very similar. So it's quite a strong tea in terms of that it gives you this full round wooden flavor, but it's not overwhelming. There's not this typical kind of umami flavor, strong kind of savory sweetness with it, which you get from a shaded sencha or a sencha itself, or even when you go into the space of gyokuro. Here we are absolutely in a super smoothing, like easy, soft taste. I often drink this when I'm not too much, or when I find myself in drinking a lot of also acid food, for example. If you also eat meat or something, then just this tea is just great, just to a little bit soothe the body, a little bit calm down, and just relax into the afternoon. So for me, a perfect afternoon tea, evening tea, or also when you're coming back from a stressful day. So perfect tea maybe you might want to discover. So this is the Bancha, and it looks like this. Thanks a lot for watching. See you and bye bye.